This is also the first day of winter. The first day of winter, which is a season of rest. It is a season of hibernation and incubation, a season of reflection. It is not the season to run out and do and grab and steal. It's the season to wait. Welcome. You are listening to Our Mindful Nature, formerly titled The Mindful Minute. I'm your host, Meryl Arnett. This podcast explores the deep connection between land and self through nature-based meditations and meditative experiences that invite us back into belonging to each other, to our ancestors, to the earth, and to all beings that make up this universe. If you would like to access these meditation practices as standalone audio files, please subscribe to my newsletter at merylarnett.com. It's free, and you'll receive a new mini meditation each week, along with behind-the-scenes content and bonus material for each podcast episode. All right, grab a cup of tea, pop in your headphones, and find a comfy seat. Let's settle in for today's episode. Welcome and happy solstice. I'm so happy to see all of you, some of my Monday night people, all of my elemental people. I'm thrilled to have you. I'm going to linger because I know I was like, get headphones. And then I hit record, which was not kind to me. So I'll give it just another second for me to get situated and we'll call ourselves in. How's everybody feeling today? Pretty good? Yeah? Okay. I want to call us in by reading The Shortest Day, which is a poem by Susan Cooper. And I have called in the solstice several years now with this particular poem. It's one of my favorites. And so we'll just take a minute to listen and we'll let this be our transition from maybe everything that we have done today and this month and this year, letting it shift us into just this one particular moment. Yeah. So the shortest day. So the shortest day came, and the year died. And everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people, singing, dancing, to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the new year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight. This shortest day, as promise, wakens in the sleeping land. They carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends and hope for peace. And so do we, here, now, this year and every year. Welcome Yule. And so we call in the solstice, the shortest day, Yule or Yulemas. There are many names for today. And, this day, along with the summer solstice, both solstices, have been marked across cultures, across traditions, spaces, for more than 5,000 years. 5,000 years, people have noted this day, and it's opposite, the day of the most light, right? We have the least light today, as a way to maybe remind ourselves of the cyclical nature of the harvest, the seasons, ourselves. And, one of my favorite things to do is like hunt down myths and stories about this particular time of year. And it's really interesting because a lot of the myths that are associated with the solstice are forceful in some way. There's stories of some being going to steal the light back. They hunt for it, they grab it, they steal it, they find it, they pull it back unwillingly. And there are also stories that tend to be of waiting, of hoping. There are stories of reverence and prayer. There are stories of deep questioning and being lost. And there are two stories that really stood out to me this year that I want to start with. The first one is an odd bit of Jewish lore that I stumbled across over Hanukkah. And in this particular bit of lore, there were priests eons ago who knew that a temple was going to be attacked, and they wanted to hide the sacred flame that was in this temple. And so they hid it in a cistern, which is like a tank used to store water, right? They hid it in there and then they left. And when they came back many moons later, of course, the fire had gone out. And what they did is they poured this water out on the altar. And when the sunlight hit the water, it rekindled the flame. The flame had just been hidden in this water the whole time. And there's another bit of myth, a story now of Adam and Eve and their first winter after leaving the garden. And the days are getting darker and darker, and Adam doesn't know why. And obviously, that's very scary. And fearing the end of days, he chooses to sit still and fast and pray and wait until, of course, the day after the solstice comes and there's a little bit more light. And suddenly he understood the cyclical nature of things. So the stories go. And I like these stories because they remind us that, this day, it can be really easy to show up for a day like the solstice or the new year, right? I think we can think of these in the same way because they're both sort of tipping point days. And they're both days that we might say, like, oh, I'm going to do something special on this day, something introspective. And we might have quite a bit of expectation around what might happen in a solstice meditation or a New Year's meditation. We might feel like we're going to grab or steal or force that insight into our practice. And equally, we can show up with this invitation, this idea to be curious and patient, and acknowledge that while this day is the shortest day, and every day after today will have a bit more light, this is also the first day of winter. The first day of winter, which is a season of rest. It is a season of hibernation and incubation, a season of reflection. It is not the season to run out and do and grab and steal. It's the season to wait. And I think it's a season to perhaps harvest our fire, harvest the energy, the light, all that we have done in this previous year. Maybe we take this moment to name that, to lay value on that, and to harvest that so that we have it for these coming cold, dark months. Now, some of you, I know not all of you, but some of you were with me for the summer solstice meditation. And in that meditation this year, we talked a lot about bees, the magic of bees. It was it's interesting because we're at polar opposite ends of the seasons, and yet we're going to talk about fire with both of these seasons. So, bees are symbolically sweetness, creativity, abundance, fertility. And in particular, they represent sort of this transformational energy of fire, right? You can think of pollen becoming honey as this transformational power of harvesting fire. And I found it surprising, actually, that in my research, bee mythology and lore shows up at the winter solstice. We don't see a ton of bees out, they're not particularly active. And yet there are bee stories. And in particular, one that jumped out at me, Sylvia Plath, poet, near the end of her life, she was a beekeeper. And she wrote a series of 5 poems about bees, one of which was called Wintering. And it's long. So I linked it in one of the emails, so you can read the whole thing if you want. But it starts this way: "This is the easy time. There's nothing doing. I have whirled the midwife's extractor. I have my honey, 6 jars of it, 6 cat eyes in the wine cellar." And then many stanzas later, it ends, "Will the hive survive? Will the gladiolas succeed in banking their fires to enter another year? What will they taste of? The Christmas roses? The bees are flying. They taste the spring." I love the imagery here of the 6 jars of honey, of the gladiolas banking their fire, and this invitation for each of us today to think about harvesting this sweetness, this creativity, this abundance from the year. So I have to tell you, and I promise, hand to heart, promise, didn't plan it. But I, of course, do my own practice before I sit with you guys. And I pulled my own oracle cards. And the card that I pulled for today, the question I asked was, what's the energy that this solstice needs? What's the energy that this solstice needs? And the card I pulled is the 10 of Pentacles. And when I read about the 10 of Pentacles, the heading is masterpiece. And underneath it, the subtitle, hold on, I have to read it word for word. "You are the bee and the honey." I was like, magic. You are the bee and the honey. I wrote a whole story about this. And here it is being confirmed for us. And the idea behind this card, right, is culmination. The idea behind the card is like, here's your masterpiece. We must take a moment now to rest, to place value on the things that we have done, whether they're tangible things out in the world or internal things within ourselves. We place value on that. We rest in that before we step into what comes next. And so here we are. The masterpiece of our year is right now. So we will settle into a meditation together tonight, friends. And this is going to be a bit longer and a bit different. So let's just talk a little bit. My hope, and I'm going to, I'll feel it and we'll see what happens. My hope is we're going to go about 40 minutes in this meditation. And what you should know in advance of doing that is that most of us are not going to deeply meditate for 40 minutes. You will likely come in and out, maybe multiple times in the practice. Don't feel bad about that. You can actually take a moment to open your eyes and shake out your body if you're feeling a lot of energy. You can move your position if you want to lie down. If you have some sort of powerful insight, take a moment and jot it down, and then just return to the practice. And as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some soundscapes that sort of help carry us through today's practice, and you'll hear them change, right? There'll be these moments where you're like, oh, something different is happening. That's a great moment for you to be like, let me just sort of step out of the practice and then reorient myself to the practice, shifting as much as you need. So it's not necessarily about staying deep the whole time, as it is about this meandering journey that I hope we take together. Yeah. So we'll do this practice. We're going to do a little journal, a little oracle card pull if you want. And then we're going to come back and talk about a second piece to carry us into the evening. Yes. Sound good? Any questions or comments before we practice? Bees, honey, fire. Okay, good. All right. Let's let ourselves get situated. So take a minute to find yourself comfortable. If you want your camera on or off, that's totally up to you. You let yourself land in the first of your comfortable seats. And we're going to start wherever you are, taking as much time as you need. We're going to start without any sound at all, just the sound of your own space, so that you can take a moment to settle into where you actually are in this particular moment, on this particular day. If you want to close your eyes for this practice, I hope you feel free. And if it feels better for you to have a soft gaze the whole time, you can absolutely do so. So, together as a group here, we'll start with a great big breath in. Exhale out a sigh. And let's just do this again. Inhaling deeply. Exhaling out a sigh. And taking all the time you need to settle yourself into your body and into this evening's solstice practice. We begin as we always do, just by silently saying to ourselves, now is my time to meditate. Now is my time to meditate. And as you say those words, maybe your mind just scans back over 5,000 years of people marking this day. 5,000 years of fires burned, of scanning the skies, of sitting still. And so maybe you can feel yourself relaxing into the energy that is already present in a day like today. From the very center of your body out in all directions, just softening any noticeable tension, softening any gripping. And over the next few breaths, you feel any hard edges in your body softening, so that you feel a bit more fluid, a bit more blurred at the edges. And in this softened place, we take a moment just in our mind's eye to draw a circle around ourselves. You can see this circle made of any element, any object. Could be fire, could be water, could be light. Could be sticks, flowers, or snowflakes. We draw this circle around ourselves as a layer of protection, a layer that simply holds at bay the outside world. So if there are voices in your space, if there are sounds or distractions, you know that this circle just simply holds them at bay. And likewise, this circle holds at bay our thoughts, our expectations. Inside this circle, we are able to be just a little bit softer. And we continue to allow our breath to flow, and we'll take a moment to draw a second circle, one around the first. This is the circle of support. This circle can be made up of anybody or anything that offers you a sense of support and safety, be it ancestors, friends, family, mythological figures, beings long since gone or here now. We have our protection, we have our support. We had one final circle around ourselves. This one made of the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and space. The same elements we too are made of, reminding us that we are not here to do anything at all. We're just here to be. And as we settle into those circles, we're going to call ourselves into the winter woods. And you hear the wind chimes beckon and the wind blowing. And as you let yourself settle into the winter woods this evening, let's draw our attention to our breath, specifically just inside the nose. You're feeling yourself inhale and exhale with no rush, no force. Just mapping the flow of your breath for a moment. And you might notice that as you inhale that air, that energy is being drawn right into the center of your mind. And from that midbrain space, you exhale back out through the nose. And so for the next few breaths, as the wind blows and the leaves rustle, you just feel breath, energy, aliveness, building in the midbrain. And as you feel that midbrain awake and full of energy, we'll go on a bit of a walk. Today we're working our way down towards the cave of the self. And the spine serves as ladder or pathway through these woods. And so we'll take the next 3-4 minutes to journey from the center of the brain down the spine. One step, one rung at a time. Trusting the path with perfect faith. There is nothing to fear here, not even the dark. Following your breath, one step at a time. Lower and lower. Making your way all the way down towards the base of the pelvis. Down here at the base lies a cave. And as you feel ready, you step into the cave of the self. And you notice how it sounds as you step into this sacred cave. The pulse of the outside world still echoes through the walls. We settle ourselves into this dark cave to simply rest. We'll have about 5 minutes in silence here in this cave, breathing at the very base of your spine, and getting to know the dark. as you rest in this cave. Perhaps you invite yourself to take stock in the masterpiece of your year. You might walk yourself back December, November, October. Just remembering where you were, what you were doing. Noting the value in each of those days, each of those months. Whether it was from conversation, from internal reflection, or work done. We walk back through September, August, and July. We walk back through June, May, through April, March, February, January, and you sense the circle from winter to winter. Taking in your masterpiece. And we know that now is the time to store that fire, that honey, to relish in that transformational energy that fire possesses. And so we sense that here in this cave, there's a fire. One that starts with a crackle and a hum. And you let yourself see this fire just as it appears to you, whether that's a flame or a campfire, big or small. You rest all of your awareness, your breath into the fire now. And you let the story take you where it will. Maybe the fire grows and spreads through your body, storing itself in each cell. Maybe breath by breath, it fills those 6 jars of honey, stored up for your own winter months. We have about 10 more minutes in silence here to breathe and harvest the fire. feel your breath flowing here. And perhaps you sense that you have successfully banked that fire for another year. As you sense a bit deeper into your breath, we'll think about leaving this cave for now, knowing that the fire, the embers, or the 6 jars of honey are well stored. And so our breath flows. And we hear the wind chimes starting to call us back out towards the winter woods. And so with our breath and our mind's eye, we begin to climb out of that cave. And we venture up the ladder or the path of the spine, knowing that as you climb the spine, you climb through each of those elements: earth and water and fire and wind and ether, journeying up, 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 until you find yourself back at the midbrain where we began. Giving yourself just a breath or two here, in and out of the nose, into the midbrain, out of the midbrain. Feeling yourself softening any tension that might have developed along the way. Feeling the practice settle itself inside your body as you let go of that outermost ring, the elemental ring. And you let go of the second ring, that ring of support, maybe saying thank you. And you let go of that last ring, the one of protection. And if you haven't already, you might start to wiggle now into your fingers and your toes, or move your shoulders back, wiggle your jaw. And together here, we'll take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhaling out a sigh. Taking all the time you need to let go of that practice. To blink your eyes open if they were closed. And friends, we will shift to just 5 minutes maybe of journaling. Get down what you remember from your practice, anything that came up. And now would be the time to pull a card, if you want to pull a card or two, and just, you might ask, what's the energy of my solstice, of my winter? What am I carrying forward into winter? Thanks for listening to Our Mindful Nature. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with a friend or leaving me a review wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others to find the show, and let's face it, we could all use a few more meditators in our lives. Our Mindful Nature is recorded on Muskogee land and produced with the support of Brianna Nielsen. Deep gratitude is offered to acoustic ecologists Gordon Hempton and Nick McMahon for the use of their nature field recordings in many of these episodes. To join my live classes, ask questions, or learn about my teacher trainings, please visit merylarnett.com. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next week.